Hello and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Wednesday, December 20th, 2017, and this is episode 43. My name is Carol and I am known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry. The show notes for this and every episode can be found on the blog and also in the episode thread in the Ravelry group. Welcome to all new and returning viewers. If you've watched before, you'll immediately notice a different background than usual. And if you're new, this episode is going to follow a little bit of a different format today, but I hope you like what you see and that you'll come back and watch in the future. So in addition to my normal segments, I am going to spend part of this podcast looking back on 2017 and looking ahead to 2018. So settle in, grab yourself something to drink. I've just finished making a latte out of today's David's Tea Advent Calendar tea, which was called, I think it was something like Carrot Cupcake. It's quite a cinnamony kind of spicy tea, so I thought it would taste good as a latte, so you can maybe see without spilling. Got a little bit of cinnamon sprinkled on top of mine. And it is very nice. I probably have foam on my lips. First thing I'm going to do is talk about a couple of finished projects that I just finished within the last couple of days. The first are some socks I knit for my husband, Cameron, for Christmas. So these are knit from this online super sock. And I've ripped off the colorway number, unfortunately, but I think it's 2028. And if it's different, I'll write it down at the bottom of the screen here. And then I put a contrasting heel in with this yarn, which is Elan A Series SO1 in the dark gray colorway, and that's color 15. Now I knit these socks from the toe up this time because I wasn't sure how far the yarn was going to go. It is a sport weight, and it does come in 150 gram skeins, but I'm not used to knitting sport weight socks, so I thought I'd play it safe and start from the bottom. And originally I cast on 64 stitches, but I was a little ways into them and realized they were a little bit looser, a little bit bigger than his normal socks that I knit out of usually do a fingering 72 stitches. And so I did take them back to the end of the toe here and took them down to 60 stitches, and I think they'll be a good size. So this yarn knit up nice and fast. It'll be a good thicker sock to put in his boots or something like that. So yeah, they're all ready to go under the Christmas tree. Yay! This was the last of my gift knitting, so it feels very good to get it done. And then just last night I finished Christmas socks for myself, and they are here. Oops, let's just, they are from this Regia 4-ply. It's an Arnie and Carlos colorway, and it's color 3760 garden. But even though they're supposed to look like a garden, to me they look like a Christmas sweater. The pattern I used, which I thought was super clever, it's the Fruit Stripe Gum Socks. I hope I said that right. And I think it's by Claire Oakley. I have very few show notes this week, which is unusual, but I wanted to get right into recording. So if anything I say is wrong, you'll see corrections at the bottom. But you can see that this spiral rib pattern really plays nicely with the striped self-striping yarn. Gives it a fun look on the leg, and then you switch to stockinette for the foot. And the pattern called for a traditional heel flap and gusset, but I added this nice red yarn instead in a short row heel. And that's West Yorkshire Spinners signature 4-ply in the cayenne pepper colorway. That's color 510. I don't know if you can see that red heel against my red shirt. There you go. That might be better. So I am very happy to have done these in time to wear for Christmas. I don't usually knit Christmas socks, so it's my first pair of several because I acquired some Christmassy yarn this year. So glad to have those done. And it's strange because now I have no plain socks on the needle, but I am going to remedy that later today. So what I have in progress that I've actually been working on is those who have been following my Vlogmas episodes will have seen this project growing day after day. It is the Land of Sweets cowl by Helen Stewart. I'll just give you a picture. You can see. And it is a long cowl that was originally written with the yarn advent calendars in mind that give you a little mini skein every day for 24 days. So what I did was went through my sock yarn scraps and also pulled out a few full skeins of sock yarn or fingering weight yarn and put some thought into the yarn choices. I didn't just go random. So this is today's stripe, and as you can see, it's grown considerably since a week ago when I showed it on the regular episode last, and just 4 more stripes to go. So that has been really fun to work on. I'm not sure how the color is going to show up in this light, but this is a really turquoisey color. I've seen it on some of my Vlogmas episodes. It comes up looking quite a bit like a royal blue, but it's not. It's like a turquoisey, tealy kind of blue. So that is actually all other than these socks that I've been working on, and it feels strange. I don't know quite where to go from here. Well, that's not exactly true. I've been thinking about cast-ons. So one thing I am going to do right away is cast on a pair of plain stockinette socks. And I thought I might wait until Christmas Eve to cast these on, but I need them now. So this is my newly acquired Fiber Nymph Dye Works Bedazzled sock base, and it is the Elves Were in the Eggnog colorway. And I have admired this colorway ever since Lisa first dyed it up, and was very excited to get my hands on a skein of it on her sale that went over the weekend following American Thanksgiving. And so very much looking forward to casting those on. Something else I had hoped to cast on this December and haven't got around to it is another pattern by Helen Stewart called the Tulle Shawl. And I've shown this yarn before, and this pattern, it's part of her Knit Vent series for 2017, and like the Land of Sweets cowl. But I've just had too many other things. So now that I'm free, I am going to cast this on later today. And I'm going to make it out of this yarn from Stunning String Studios. It's called Stunning Superwash, and it's in the Plum Pudding colorway, which I thought was very fitting for Christmas time. And then I'm going to be using these beads. I don't know how well that will show up, but I think they're a lovely match. And I haven't done a beaded shawl or worked on a beaded shawl for a little while, so I'm looking forward to that too. Take a sip here. I was watching the latest episode of 90% Knitting, and Lisa was talking about winter solstice. It's not anything I have normally observed before, but it's tomorrow. And I have had this pattern called the Longest Night Shawl for a number of years. It was designed by a friend of mine called Lori Law, and she's the proprietress of Ocean Wind Knits. And she had done this, it says 2008 copyright, so that's how long ago it is. And she had done this shawl along with, I think it's Anne, if I'm not mistaken, of Woolly Wonka fibers. And so Woolly Wonka dyed the yarn, and then Lori knit the shawl. And I've had this in my stash forever, like 2008, and I thought it would be really fun to cast it on tomorrow, seeing as it is the winter solstice and will be the longest night of the year. So that's my plans for tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to all of those new cast-ons. Thought I would, before I talk about some other works that I have going on, works in progress, I thought I'd just take a few minutes and just look at 2017 and talk a little bit about some of my favorite projects. And then I'm going to talk about what's coming up for 2018. So I think if I had to have a highlight for 2017, it would be, well, there's a lot, but my sock yarn blanket, I finally finished the actual squares for it after it had been in progress for a couple of years. You can see there are still ends to be woven in along the edges, but I have finished all that knitting, and I have to add a border. I just haven't gotten around to figure out what I'm going to do for the border yet. So what I did is I added these triangles in along the edges in order to give the blanket a straight edge, and the instructions for how to do that are on my project page. I really like that addition. I think it gives it a nice finish. So I'm currently debating whether to crochet an edge on or to pick up and do a I-cord bind off as the original pattern by Shelley Kang or Kong instructs. So that's up for debate. That will be coming up in 2018. Another thing that I'm really proud of is I've participated in the Grocery Girls Sock Bash all year. Actually, that's what these socks are for. So this is my 12th pair for that. So I'm going to take them off the blockers, fold them up, and add them to my, I guess I could call this a box of socks. I know Kristen on the Yarngasm podcast has an ongoing box of socks knit along, but I haven't actually participated in it, but I have in fact knit 12 pairs of socks this year for the Grocery Girls Sock Bash, and I just feel really pleased with my ability to get one patterned pair every month done, because I do have stockinette socks on the go all the time, but it takes a little more effort to add a pattern, and so yeah, I'm very happy with that accomplishment. If you're interested in seeing them all in one place, on my projects tab on my projects big page that has all the projects, one of the tabs is labeled Sock Bash 2017, and then that you can get information on all of those patterns there. And as far as sewing goes, I think my biggest accomplishment this year was to finally put together my Little House on the Prairie quilt. I just took up quilting, I guess it's coming up a couple of years ago. This is Quilt As You Go method, and I had done all the squares. It's from Quilt As You Go Made Modern by Jira Brandwig, I believe is her name, and This is the Solstice Parade pattern. Gee, that's all coming, pulling it out of somewhere here, but I think that's what it is. So I arranged them in a kind of a, just trying to see if that's the top or bottom. That's the top. Kind of in a zigzaggy pattern, which created these big diamonds. And I added this, just a plain navy blue broadcloth between them, and then use that for the edging. And then this is the backing fabric, which I just love. These little prairie girls dancing around in their sunbonnets. I would say my biggest accomplishment and the thing I am most proud of in a non-crafting sense is putting this podcast together. I began it earlier this year, and I've learned so much about uploading videos and editing and adding music and pictures, and I've had lots of frustrations with the YouTube because they discontinued their editing program partway through the year, so I had to learn it all over again. But it's been very satisfying in that sense. But most satisfying of all is to have met so many people on Ravelry and on YouTube via the podcast, and it's added a real rich dimension to my life. So thank you for all of you who have taken the time to comment or press the like button or just tune in every week. It's nice to know I'm talking to someone out there on the other side of the camera. And I have to say that I've just received all positive feedback, except this morning I noticed I was going back to one of my Vlogmas episodes to check something. I noticed a thumbs down. That's the first thumbs down I've seen. So I guess it was bound to happen sooner or later. But in general, people have been very kind. So thank you for that. So what about 2018? Well, there are a couple of projects that I am going to return to right away. One of them is Dusty Road by Carol Feller. It is a 3/4 length sleeved sweater. And I began that this fall in this beautiful purple yarn. Oops. The top down raglan with lace sleeves and also a little lace insert down the side. I don't know how well that's showing up. So you can see I've passed the division for the sleeves and body, and I'm just working my way down the body. And the yarn I'm using for that, see if I have a label handy here. It's Malabrigo, and it's the Arroyo yarn in the Purpurus colorway. It's a sport weight. I've really enjoyed this project, and I'm looking forward to getting back to it right away. And then the other project I cast on not too long ago is this Cedarburg Shawl by Tabitha Hedrick. Sorry, I just have the black and white photo here, but you can see it is a triangular kind of asymmetrical shawl that incorporates garter stitch and lace. And I'm using 3 colors of Sweet Georgia Yarns Tough Love Sock. And I'll grab those labels up for a sec, but I'll show you the yarn ends all over the place. So I'm using this gold as my main color, and then adding in this orchid. This is called Gold Mine, I believe. Sorry, I should have been more prepared. Yes, Gold Mine. And then the pink is Orchid. And then this variegated one is called Smitten. So when I left off, I was working on this section here with this garter rib. So again, I'm looking forward to getting back to that during the Christmas season, or in the New Year is more likely. And other than that, I have a number of projects that I won't get into now that are on the needles. And I know I've got at least a couple of pairs. Well, no, I think I have 3 pairs of socks. One is couplet, which I really like, and I just would like to get back to. I have 1 sock done of the vicar's wife, so I need to cast on the second. And the third one I have are cozy check socks. I had cast them on with the intention of knitting them for my brother-in-law, and they are just not holding my attention, and I have a feeling those are going to get frogged sooner rather than later, and kind of just get them off my conscience. Other than that, I do have a number of other projects that have been in hibernation for some time, and I think what I need to do is kind of take a good look at them and decide if I'm going to finish or frog. You know, often when something doesn't get worked on, there's a reason, so it's worth just taking stock every now and then and deciding what really is important. What I know I would like to do is to concentrate on some sweater knitting this year. I feel like I have a lot of sweaters, but I don't wear them as much as I should. And I think part of that is really thinking about what kind of sweater I'm knitting and whether it's something I'll actually wear, if it fits into my lifestyle. And the climate I live in. For those who don't know, I live in the Fraser Valley, close to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. So we have similar, if you're in the States, it would be similar weather to Seattle in the Pacific Northwest. And we often don't need anything heavier than a long sleeve t-shirt indoors on a winter's day. And so it's important to keep that in mind when I'm knitting my sweaters, because what I'm drawn to is not always what I'll actually use. I also find I like a sweater design, but it's fancier than I would normally wear around the house, and I don't necessarily wear it out. So that for me is a goal this year, to really think about sweaters and knit them with some thought, more thought. Something else I have had, again, my friend Lori Law from Ocean Wind Knits, she put out a pattern collection, 2014 I see as the copyright, of crescent shaped shawls. And I have the collection, and I have yarn in mind for some of them. And I have patterns printed off. There's Dusky Wing. I have a gradient set for that. Evenings in Provence. Water's Edge Shawl. And the Barley Fields Shawlette. And I think there's 1 or 2 others that I haven't printed off yet. So I would like to start knitting those this year. Something else that I've been giving some thought to, I guess it goes under the category of to cowl or not to cowl. This year I participated in a number of knit-alongs. I did the Grocery Girls Sock Bash all year long, which meant knitting a pair of socks a month. I knit several shawls from Helen Stewart's Second Shawl Society. I've got a couple of shawls here from the Knit Vent collection, or a couple of projects that I'm either knitting or planning to cast on. I did knit along with the Very Busy Monkey group this year. And as much as I love knit-alongs, because for one thing, I like that they motivate me to finish within a specific time frame. I also love to see how one pattern can be knit in so many different ways with different yarn choices or modifications. So I really like knit-alongs. The downside of them is that they sometimes prevent me from knitting on other things and other projects, like this sweater or this other shawl. They languish. And so that I'm giving a lot of thought to this year. I'm also giving thought to the future of the Agatha Christie along. Back near when I began this podcast, fairly early on into it, I started the Agatha Christie along thread in Ravelry, and I have been holding this knit along all year in conjunction with reading my way through my Agatha Christie collection. I've started with book 1 in order of publication and have been gradually working my way through, because I do have all the books. And I'm noticing I'm not participating in that with that knit along as much as I would like with my own pair of socks. And I've noticed a slowdown in the participation over the last little while. And I know it's a busy time of year with Christmas and such. I'm willing to carry it on if there's enough interest. So I would love to hear back from you. Is that something you see yourself participating in the next little while? Or is it something that I'll just keep running, but do it again on a less formal basis? When I first began it, it was just, I had it just if you wanted to knit along for fun, you could post your projects there. And then I introduced a prize factor at the beginning of every month. I'm not sure how long ago I started that, 4 or 5 months or 6 months ago, something like that. Which I don't mind doing. I offer up a pattern that's worth $10 US every month, which is extremely manageable for me, and I am happy to continue to do that if there's enough interest. So yeah, I'd really like feedback on the future of the Agatha Christie along. I know there's tons and tons of knit-alongs out there, and we can't participate in all of them. It's just not possible. So that's something I'm giving some thought to. Also, I learned, I guess it was last week, that Helen Stewart, instead of doing the Shawl Society this time around, is going to do a sock society. That's going to run all year, starting in February, and there'll be a pattern every other month. And that's something I have to think about. I really like Helen Stewart's designs. I have admired them for a long time, but I really only started knitting them last year with, I think with Knit Vent, and then, or I guess the Shawl Society one, and then her shawl for Knit Vent last year, her Snow Melt shawl this year was a knit along. That's what I didn't mention that I participated in. And that shawl's gotten so much use this winter. It's sitting right over there, and I put it around my shoulders pretty well every evening and morning. And then I did a few patterns from the Shawl Society collection that she had this year. So that's something that I have to consider before I press purchase. I get caught up in the idea of a lot of these knit-alongs, but I have to really think about whether I want to commit to that again this year, or if I would prefer a knit-along or a year without knit-alongs. So, or maybe just one is okay, and that is a healthy balance. So I'll be thinking about that in the next little while too. Just check my notes such as they are. I am definitely not going to do the Grocery Girls Sock Bash this year. I don't even know if they're running it next year, but I've decided that I'm not going to commit to a sock a month. I will always have stockinette socks on the needles, and I will continue to knit socks for some of my family as gifts. I kind of knit them all year long and then gift them. We seem to have a big group of birthdays in the fall and winter, and then of course there's Christmas. So I find I knit socks all year long, and then I have a lot of them ready to gift come November or December. Yeah, I've decided I'm not going to do Sock Bash again. As much as I've enjoyed it, it's time to move on and open myself up to some other sock patterns. And that's where Helen Stewart Sock Society may come in, because that's only 6 socks over the course of a year. And that leaves me more room for other things. So that's kind of where my thought process is going as far as 2018. What I will continue to do is podcast. It has brought me a great deal of joy, and once a week for now seems to work out okay. Most weeks I can find the time, and so at least for the foreseeable future I will continue podcasting. Just reflecting a little bit. I've had a busy week with some social engagements. I'm trying to think, I podcast last Wednesday. So we shopped for, my friends and I shopped for our adopted Christmas family Wednesday night. And then Thursday we had curling. Friday we we had dinner with 2 sets of two couples that are good friends of ours, and went after the restaurant, went to one of the couples' homes for dessert and talked till 2 o'clock in the morning. It was wonderful. And the following night was my husband's work party, so that was another late night. Wasn't quite myself for a few days. I think between being a little bit run down, I think I picked up a bit of a stomach bug, and just wasn't feeling quite myself in that respect, but I seem to have bounced back from that. Last night we had like a little bit of an appy night with some other friends. And coming up, we've got the last week of curling Thursday night. We're having dinner with my brother-in-law and sister-in-law Friday night, because they're going to Victoria for Christmas, and we will be here, and so we won't see them, and so we are going to have a little bit of a Christmas celebration on our own. And then Saturday morning we are getting up and driving up to Clinton, which is where my mom lives, and we'll get there in time for lunch, have grilled cheese, it sounds like, and then drive home. And then my older sister's invited us for dinner, and that'll give my mom a chance to see her new place. My sister and brother-in-law have just recently moved to Chilliwack back in October, so my mom will have a chance to see their place. And then the next day's Christmas Eve, and we will be driving into Coquitlam. For those who are familiar with the area, it's about an hour away by highway, and get together with some of my mom's family. That was always their traditional Christmas celebration, took place Christmas Eve. So we're going to do that. Christmas Day, 3 of my sisters and I alternate cooking dinner. I had that chance, or that task last year, and so I don't have to do it this year. I'll be going to another sister's house for dinner. And then there's a little bit of a break until New Year's weekend, in which case we're going to go to Victoria, and we'll see Cameron's mom and his brother and sister-in-law there, spend a couple of nights with them. And then we are going to have 5 nights on Salt Spring Island, which is one of the Gulf Islands in the waters separating Vancouver from Vancouver Island, more or less. And so that we are really looking forward to. We've rented like a cabin there, and we'll take our own food to cook and such, and just cocoon for almost a week. It's a great way to relax after a busy holiday season, so I'm very much looking forward to that. As a result, I will not be podcasting for the next couple of weeks. So where was I? I think I was just saying that I won't be recording again for a couple of weeks. Obviously, there's Christmas next week, and we'll have company here in the house with my mom, and then I'll be away. So even if I wanted to, I couldn't edit and upload without my computer, which will be here at home. So, but I do look forward to tell you all about the things I've been working on between now and then, and a little bit about our Christmas festivities. So if you do celebrate Christmas, as I do, Merry Christmas to you. I noticed today's the last day of Hanukkah, so happy Hanukkah if that is the holiday that you celebrate. All the best to all of you for the coming year. Happy New Year, and happy knitting. So I will see you again in a couple of weeks. Take care until then. Bye.